welcome back to Nails Before Films. It's your favorite disgrace to society, and I'm back to yapping about horse girls. Today, I'll be talking about Uma Musume Cinderella Gray Part 2. Before I get into the anime, I want to congratulate everyone who worked on the Cinderella Gray manga, which ended last Christmas. Although I find the last Arima Kinen to be a bit rushed, it's still an amazing run. So thank you to everyone who worked on the manga. Thank you Side Games for creating Cinderella Gray. Most importantly, thank you Oguri Cap. Even after almost 40 years, your story of fighting against all odds still inspires many. Now let's get into part 2 of the anime. Part 2 starts with a Fujimasa March story. Timeline-wise, this happened in episode 10, where Oguri won the Takamatsu no Miyahai, a G2 race in record time. It became a G1 race in 1996. Cinderella Gray most likely kept the old grading so that the Arima Kinen would be Oguri's first G1 win. On the same day, March raced in the Gifu Okan show against Fujino Northern, who won the Tokai Derby. In real life, Fujino Northern raced with both Oguri and March before. Her second race was Oguri's third race, where she only got 9th place. She also raced in Oguri's last 2 Kasamatsu race, the Junior Grand Prix and the Gold Junior, which March also ran in. Oguri won both of these races. March got 4th and 2nd, while Fujino Northern was 3rd and 5th. She also lost to March after the Gold Junior, getting 3rd place. She got her revenge in the Tokai Derby, getting 1st place, while March was only 4th. But March turned the tables again in their next race, the Gifu Okan show, where March won and Fujino Northern got 5th place. This is the last time we see March racing, so I'll go through his career after this. He went to Chuo next year but performed poorly, getting last place every time. Tama's main jockey, who became Oguri's main jockey in 1989, even rode March once, but he was still dead last. Afterward, March became a local racehorse in Kochi for the rest of his career. He got mixed results, but he stayed on the racetrack longer than Oguri, who retired in 1990 while March's career went on for almost 2 more years. The next race we see is the Kikka show. In real life, Sakura Chiyono suffered from a bowed tendon after the Japanese Derby and rested for almost a year. He came back and raced in the Yasuda Kinen and Takarazuka Kinen but got last place both times. Afterward, he was again diagnosed with a bowed tendon and retired. Before the Kikka, Meijiro Arudan and Soccer Boy or Dicta striker in Cinderella Gray were also injured and couldn't run. As such, Yaino Muteki was the favorite, and Super Creek didn't even make it into the race at first. He ranked 19th, but another horse had the same earnings as him, so 2 horses needed to drop out for Creek to make it in 100%. Take Yutaka, one of the most decorated Japanese jockey, was Creek's jockey at the time, and he's the inspiration behind Creek's trainer. Take was a rising star in the second year of his career, and he had a famous jockey father who was nicknamed Turf Magician. Besides Creek, Take had the option to ride 3 other horses in the Kikka show. However, he was determined to ride Creek, even saying that he wouldn't race if Creek didn't make it. He negotiated with the owner of another horse he rode, convincing him to withdraw from the Kikka show. Fortunately, another horse also withdrew due to potential injuries, so Creek made it in, hence the miracle in Cinderella Gray. As for the race, it pretty much happened the same way as the anime. Yaino changed position early on and wasted his stamina, which could be why he lost in the end. Using the window when the railing ended, Creek was able to pull away from the rest and won by 5 force lengths. This was both Creek's and Take's first G1 win. The anime didn't show it, but Yaino got 10th place, the worst of his career. After the Kikka show, the focus shifts to the Japan Cup. Let's take a look at the foreign horse girls. First, we have Tony Bin, or Tony Bianca in Cinderella Gray, who was the second favorite, just behind Tama. For those who watched my Road to the Top video, you'd know that Tony Bin was one of the big 3 stallions of the 90s in Japan. Quite a few of his offsprings are in Uma Musume. He was the winner of that year's Prix du Lac du Triomphe, as well as many other European G1 races. Next, Moon Madness, or Moonlight Lunacy in Cinderella Gray, was a British racehorse who had raced with Tony Bin 3 times before. They both raced in the Grand Prix du Saint-Cloud, where Moon Madness got 1st place and Tony Bin 2nd. They raced twice together in the King George VI and Queen Elizabeth Diamond Stakes, but they lost both times. The 1988 Japan Cup was the last race for them. Tony Benn fractured his leg during the race, ending up in 5th place. He stayed in Japan and became one of the most prolific studs until his death in 2000. Moon Madness, who finished 6th in the Japan Cup, also became a stud in Japan afterward. Next, Bonecrusher, or a Leslie Pride in Cinderella Gray, was a racing legend in Oceania. When he was a colt, he hit the farm's concrete post and barbed wire fence, resulting in a scar on his shoulder, hence the scar on her face. Bonecrusher won many races in his career, but his greatest achievement was his 1986 Cox Plate win, a race that was dubbed Race of the Century. After a heated battle against fellow New Zealand horse Waverly Star, Bonecrusher won by a neck length, to which the race caller said Bonecrusher races into equine immortality. Later that year, both horses were invited to the Japan Cup. Unfortunately, Bonecrusher contracted a virus in Japan and almost died. He eventually recovered but had to drop out of the Japan Cup. The next year, Bonecrusher rested for nearly a year after March. As such, he missed the Japan Cup once again. Bonecrusher came back in 1988, but being 6 years old at this point, he was no longer in his prime. He finally raced in the Japan Cup that year, which is the one we see in Cinderella Gray, but only got 8th. Lastly, we have 2 horses representing the US of A, My Big Boy and Pay the Butler, or Michelle My Baby and Obey Your Master in Cinderella Gray. My Big Boy had okay results in 1986 and 87. He won his first and only G1 in 1988, about 3 months before the Japan Cup. As for Pay the Butler, he had quite a rocky career. Born in Kentucky, he started racing in France, where he got disappointing results, winning only 2 races. However, after being sold to an American owner, Pay the Butler immediately won his first graded race in the US. Unfortunately, he lost the next 5 races. He was close to winning his first G1 2 times, the Bowling Ring Handicap and the Man o' War Stakes, but got defeated by a neck length and half a horse length respectively. The winner of Man o' War, as well as Butler's next race, the Turf Classic, was Sunshine Forever. The outgoing cherry horse girl in Cinderella Gray is most likely based on him. Sunshine Forever won 3 consecutive G1s during that time. My Big Boy also raced in Man o' War and Turf Classic. He got 2nd in Man o' War behind Sunshine and Butler and finished 2nd in the Turf Classic, in which Butler was 5th. We cannot talk about Pay the Butler's Japan Cup without mentioning his jockey, Hall of Famer Chris McCarron. Rumor has it that he studied his opponents extensively and was especially wary of Tama's competitiveness. He concluded that they should stay away from Tama to avoid provoking his fighting spirit, so during the race, he bore in to avoid racing side by side. Fujii mentions that Obey could get disqualified or demoted. In real life, the JRA did not have demotion rules until 1991, but it's true that he could be disqualified. Fortunately for McCarron, he wasn't penalized and Pay the Butler won the Japan Cup, his first and only G1. This was the 8th Japan Cup and only 2 Japanese horses have won so far, Kusadagi Ace and Simping Rudolf, which is why Tony Bianca sees them when she realizes she's injured. Before leaving Japan, a Leslie Pride foreshadows that someone from New Zealand will win the Japan Cup someday. The last race of Oguri's first year in Chuo was the Arima Kinen. I've talked about Oguri's Kasamatsu jockey and his journey of becoming a Chuo jockey in my first video, so check that out for the real-life inspiration behind Kitahara. After losing to Tama twice, Oguri's team was determined to defeat him in the Arima Kinen. Oguri's trainer managed to convince Rudolf's jockey to ride Oguri for just 1 race, who suggested taking Oguri to Nakayama to familiarize him with the racetrack, which is why they do the same thing in Cinderella Gray. Next, we meet the other horse girls running in the Arima Kinen. Creek's trainer mentions that Oguri's trainer was the only one who could compete with her father. As mentioned before, Take Yutaka's dad, Take Kunihiko, was also a famous jockey. He was in the same stable as Oguri's first main Chuo jockey, Kawachi Hiroshi, and the two were good friends and rivals. Take commented that during races, Kawachi will always be in the position he wanted. Later, Tama reveals that she'll retire after the Arima Kinen. In real life, both Tama and Oguri moved to the Miho Training Center to prepare for the race. Tama, who was in poor condition after racing consecutively, had a tough time adjusting and ate less than usual. It took quite an effort from his team to keep his appetite and stamina, hence Tama's trainer cooking for her. On the other hand, Oguri was not affected at all and still had a great appetite. Later, we see Beruno talking to Tama's trainer, who motivates her to do more for Oguri. This is a reference to how after the full Tennosho, Tama's training assistant noticed Oguri's feed contained ingredients that would only fatten him. Being friends with Oguri's training assistant, he told him that Oguri would never win against Tama if he kept eating that. Oguri's training assistant immediately changed the feed. After Oguri won the Arima Kinen, Tama's training assistant mentioned that he might have helped their enemy, which is why Tama's trainer says the same thing. Next, we learn more about Dicta Striker, or Soccer Boy in real life. Soccer Boy was a remarkable horse known for speeding up in the end and dominating races. His incredible acceleration gave him the nickname Bullet Shoot. He won his debut race by 9 horse lengths, the Momiji Show by 10 horse lengths, and the Hanshin 3-year-old Stakes by 8 horse lengths, even breaking the record time. However, the spring of his second year was tough. He lost to Sakura Chiyono in the Yayoi Show and couldn't race in the Satsuki Show due to an injury. He lost his next 2 races, the NHK Cup and the Japanese Derby, getting 4th place and 15th place respectively. Although Cinderella Gray portrays the Hakodate Kinen as the race where she proves her haters wrong, he also won the race before that. He raced against Yaino Muteki in the Chunichi Sports Show. It was his first time not being the race favorite, but he managed to surpass Yaino before the goal and win by half a horse length. That being said, Soccer Boy's Hakodate Kinen win was one for the history books. He faced many powerful opponents, including the Japanese Derby horses Siriu Simboli and Mary Nice, as well as the 2-crown filly Max Beauty. However, none of them was close to challenging him. After the 4th corner, Soccer Boy not only led the race, but he pulled away further and further from the rest. He won by 5 horse lengths and broke the record time. He kept this record for 37 years and was only surpassed by Berose era last year. Before that, Soccer Boy's Hakodate Kinen record was the only turf record from the Showa era that hadn't been surpassed. A thing to note here is that Oguri's first main Chuo jockey, Kawachi Hiroshi, also rode Soccer Boy at the time. Because Oguri's team decided to switch his jockey to Rudolf's jockey, Kawachi ended up riding Soccer Boy in Arima. Before the Arima Kinen, Rudolf tells Oguri to take it easy. As mentioned before, Oguri's jockey for the Arima Kinen was Rudolf's jockey, Okabe Yukio. 13 years before he accomplished the Triple Crown with Rudolf, he went to the US and was inspired by the horse racing there. He studied English and traveled back and forth to race in both Japan and the US. He became the first Japanese jockey to win abroad in 1985, and throughout his career, he participated in 133 foreign races in 12 countries, winning 13 of them in 8 countries. He had a hard time racing abroad at first, and during this frustrated period, an American jockey whom Okabe became good friends with told him to take it easy. This became Okabe's motto, and he would tell Rudolf to take it easy when he rode him, which is why Rudolf tells Oguri the same thing here. So who was this American jockey who gave Okabe such an priceless advice? Well, it was none other than Chris McCarron, paid the Butler's jockey in Japan Cup. The real-life Arima Kinen more or less happened in the same way. Tama had a bad start, which was why he was in last place at first, and Soccer Boy hit the gate on his way out, breaking his front teeth and causing a nosebleed. On the other hand, Oguri had a good start and stayed in a good position. The pacing of the race was slow, but after the 3rd corner, Tama started chasing from the outside, and by the 4th corner, he caught up with Oguri. The 2 gray horses competed fiercely on the final straightaway, but Tama, who used too much stamina chasing Oguri, was spent before the goal and Oguri won by half a horse length. She unlocks her zone in this race named Grey Phantom, which is possibly a reference to Oguri's grandsire, Native Dancer, who was nicknamed the Grey Ghost. Similar to Tama, Soccer Boy tried to chase from the outside, but he came up short. Because Super Creek was disqualified due to interference, Soccer Boy ended up in 3rd place. Unfortunately, Soccer Boy repeatedly got injured the next year and had to retire, making Arima his last race. Lastly, we meet Inari 1. Here, she races in the All-Japan Uma Musume Cup, which is the All-Japan Thoroughbred Cup in real life. The horse girl who defeats Inari is Faith No More, real name Fate Northern. Originally a Chuo racehorse, he became a Kasamatsu racehorse a few months before Oguri left to race in Chuo. At the peak of his career, Fate Northern was the top dirt racehorse in Japan, winning races like the Teo Show, All Japan Thoroughbred Cup, and Breeders' Gold Cup, where Chuo horses could also participate. Fate Northern's main jockey was Oguri's Kasamatsu jockey, and when asked which horse from his Kasamatsu days he remembered the most, he answered Fate Northern instead of Oguri. Sadly, Fate Northern fractured his left front leg during his second All Japan Thoroughbred Cup, which resulted in a serious infection, and he was eventually euthanized. As for Inari, he had an impressive first year, winning 8 races. However, he lost 5 races in a row next year, partially due to rain on 3 of these races. Inari was not good with bad condition racetracks, contrary to what her SR support card suggests. His goal was to win the Tokyo Daishoten, go to Chuo, and race in next year's Spring Tenno Show. After a fierce battle with Aranas Monta, Inari prevailed and won the race, achieving the goal of going to Chuo. By the way, the front-runner horse, Aeroplane, was Marudensky's kid. Now that the history lesson is done, let's talk about the anime. I think part 2 is weaker than part 1. The pace is much slower. Part 1 covers almost a year and a half of Oguri's career, but part 2 only has 3 major races, the Kikka Show, Japan Cup, and Arima Kinen. It also gets repetitive sometimes. Like, do we really need to learn about the foreign horse girls 3 times? First, there's Fuji's interviews, then there's Beruno's investigation, and we have to hear a summarized version again before the race starts. Another thing I can't stand is how the horse girls start to talk mid-race. In part 1, it's mostly inner monologue or an occasional sentence to highlight the tension. But in the Japan Cup, they actually talk to each other. Obey, Tama, and Michelle all do this, and it's honestly silly to be talking when you're running like your lives depend on it. My last issue, which is something that I also dislike in the manga, is how heavily the story relies on the concept of zone. I don't like how it's portrayed as something you must have to win, and it's weird that it's treated more like a skill. Obey mentions that her zone is incomplete, like it's a skill you can learn and perfect, and it's even more ridiculous that Tama can control her zone in the Arima Kinen. From what I understand, zone is a mental state of extreme focus, which helps achieve high performance. You can have routines that make triggering zone more likely, but it's not something you can control or force to happen. And I hate that Musaka even points this out, saying that training to increase Oguri's overall performance is more important. Yet, zone is still portrayed as this almost superpower that can boost their performance to an insane level. That being said, I don't think part 2 is bad. I still like how it adapts the racehorses' careers, especially the rivalry friendship between Oguri and Tama. It perfectly encapsulates what a shame it was that they couldn't race together longer. But they will always be remembered as one of the greatest rivalry in Japan horse racing history. That's basically my thought on Cinderella Gray Part 2. Cinderella Gray is honestly one of the best Uma Musume projects, and I highly recommend reading the manga too. Please give it a try. Hope you guys like my review and nails. I did Oguri, Super Creek, Tamamo Cross, Obey Your Master, and did Tuck Striker. As always, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, comment, share, do what you want. Keep nailing it, and let's hope we get Soccer Boy in game one day, people.